Today marks the 10-year anniversary of Destiny. We set out in 2014 to do something new and different for our studio. We've conquered the Witness, looted dungeons, ascended to the lighthouse, and more, and now we look to the future. We're plotting a course to the stars through Codename Frontiers. We closed the door with the final shape, but we are opening a new one, a weird one, an exciting one that takes Destiny to places it has never been before. We're building this future now and are excited to share with you a glimpse of it today. Here is Codename Frontiers. Summer, there's an expansion, Codename Apollo. Summer 2025. Expansion would be stories, locations, missions, weapons, new gear, new raids, new dungeons. Okay, cool. So at least we know we're getting a new raid. Season available to all players. Summer 2025 major update, Codename Arsenal. Fall 2025 major update, Codename Surge. Winter 2025 Behemoth. Winter 2025 major update, Rewards Pass, Spring 2026. So we have Codename Arsenal, Codename Surge, which tells me next summer's a raid, next fall is a dungeon. And then Codename Behemoth is another raid, and then another dungeon. Or anywhere in there, you're getting two raids. Oh, you can't see it all. You're getting two raids and two dungeons in 2025. Or it could be 2025, 2026. Seasonal update, new and reprised activities, new gear and artifact mods, new modifiers and challenges, new sandbox meta, new events. Reward pass, exotic weapon ornament, legendary weapon and armor ornaments, gear upgrade resources, cosmetics, and more. None of that really interests me right there. But the big notice is that at least we know next summer you're getting a new raid. But what's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're moving back to a 2 expansion a year model based off of what it looks like. Because this would be the equivalent of year 1 of Destiny 2. Where every annual cycle you got 2 expansions. Because you would also have been getting a raid. You always get a raid per expansion. So since we have 2 expansions back to back in less than 1 calendar year, you would have 2 raids in 1 year, and which is still kind of the same notes that we've been seeing. But this means 2 new raids. They say new raids, not reprise. So 2 brand new raids and 2 brand new dungeons. Okay. This roadmap lays out our plan for year 11 and beyond, with some exciting changes to our annual model. Kind of explains it here too. 2 expansions per year, 4 major updates of free content every year, Over the next few months, we'll be sharing more info with you on Codename Frontiers, which is how we are describing major innovations coming to Destiny over the next few years, starting with our next expansion, Codename Apollo. We have several dev insight deep dives going live today, and we'll continue to add more to this list over the few weeks to come. Few weeks and months to come. Today we have Tyson Green, Game Director of D2, and Allison Lurs, D2 Narrative Director, diving through some of our future plans for D2. Our goal is to be more transparent in our communication with you. This means sharing our work more frequently, even if you see our mistakes and false starts along the way. So please remember that our roadmap and plans are subject to change as we get deeper into development. So just because it says spring 2026 could mean they push it and it goes back to fall 2026. Ultimately, this is your game too. We want you to see more of how it's made and why. If you take away nothing else, it should be this. We're excited to change. We're excited for Destiny to change and improve in ways that allow it to keep evolving in the future. I don't see it all getting pushed back. I can definitely see Behemoth getting pushed back, but here's the question. Can they afford? Because if you look at it currently, September 2024, there's no new content coming until summer 2025. Can they push any of this back? Now that the community knows the next new content you're getting is in summer of 2025. So, Dev Insight Deep Dives. Below, you'll find a list of Dev Insight Deep Dives for various innovations. Coming with Frontiers, we'll be building up this section over the next few months with breakdowns of features and changes coming to Destiny. Activities, rewards, the portal. There's a little this. The art is always pretty solid. My name is Tyson, and I'm the game director for D2. I'm excited to speak today about our team's vision for Destiny. First and foremost, we all still love Destiny. It is a unique and challenging game, both for you and for us. I've personally been working on Destiny for 15 years, and it still excites me creatively. There are not many games I could say that about, but at the same time, we recognize that it has become too rigid. Expansions have started to feel too formulaic and are over too quickly with little replay value. Seasons and episodes keep getting bigger, but can still feel like you are just going through the motions. We believe it's time for Destiny to change and evolve, and that our community wants this game to grow and innovate too. Not want, need. And to do that, we need to start breaking some of the molds. So we're starting with the annual expansion. We've loved creating annual expansions and are especially proud of the final shape, but the truth is that they dominate almost all of our development effort. We need to free ourselves up to explore and innovate with how we deliver Destiny 2, so we can invest in areas of the game that will feel more impactful to players. They're getting rid of this thing. Starting next year, instead of one big expansion, we're going to deliver 2 medium-sized expansions, one every 6 months. Okay, I kind of could tell. Each of these will depart from the one-shot campaign structure we've been using, essentially unchanged since Shadowkeep. And each will be an opportunity to explore new, exciting formats instead. Summer can mean June or September. I mean, it could also mean May. So Anywhere from May to August can be considered summer. Departing from one-shot campaigns doesn't mean we're turning away from great storytelling. Going forward, we want to return to the mystery and wonder that was woven into the fabric of early Destiny, when the story felt ripe with possibilities and an epic sense of exploration and discovery. Great stories are as important as ever in our creative vision, and Allison will touch more on that below. So, annual expansion, gone. With the change to 2 expansions per year, our seasonal model will be changing as well. Instead of 3 episodes, we'll be building 4 major updates per year, 1 every 3 months. Each expansion will launch alongside a major update at the start of a season. And then a second major update will follow 3 months later to refresh the core game and with new and reprised content, including strikes, exotic mission, and entirely new modes like Onslaught. More new modes, always cool. I'll take that. Rewards, weapons, armor, artifact mods, exotics, and more. New weekly events, new features, combat meta, and balance updates. The big seasonal resets will still happen, but now twice a year alongside the expansions. Each update will be a substantial refresh to the core game, bringing new activities and reward content. We are also excited to announce that, like Destiny 2 Into the Light, these updates and their content will be free for all players. We want Destiny to be easier for anyone to play or recommend, so we want to remove the major barrier to that experience, which means we need to talk about the core game itself. So the only paid content so far in their model, no more annual pass. The only paid models so far that I read are just paying for the 2 expansions twice a year. The core game of Destiny is always available, evergreen activity experience, and we need to fix 2 key things with it. Approachability. First, Destiny is too complex. With literally hundreds of activities, you practically need a PhD to decide what to play and how to get rewards you're looking for. They can still bundle them up into an annual pass. Well, they already said up top that whole annual pass thing is gone. They're not doing that anymore. So that whole additional price point, what they're also seeming to do, which technically is not a bad thing. If you looked at Steam and you see how Steam has like a Rolodex of things you have to purchase to own everything, they're chopping off a lot of that. To where as long as you own Destiny 2, you basically own everything needed, with the exception of 1 or 2 expansions. So you won't have everything as pieced anymore, which is, you can have D2, but unless you own all the expansions, all the this, all that, you know. Gear and challenge should matter. Even great activities stop mattering if the challenge dries up and the rewards aren't worth it. So we're investing in a greatly improved challenge customization system that lets players of any skill find the right challenge level for them, with rewards that improve based on the challenge level you take. These just won't be simple incoming damage increases either. The team is cooking up some great gameplay modifiers that give enemies some exciting tools to mix things up on every run. We will have a deep dive coming soon to show off some of these new threats. As for the rewards, there will be higher tiers of legendary gear, think adept weapons and artifice armor, that will be available from these higher challenges, higher challenge ranges, and a much wider variety of activities across both PvE and PvP. These two changes will help the core game experience be easier to drop into and much deeper in terms of variety and pursuit of personal mastery. And they are a starting point for ongoing changes aimed to continue improving Destiny in these regards. That first note is really interesting. Really interesting. We're investing in a greatly improved challenge customization system that lets players of any skill range find the right challenge for them. Which means you would have to have a much higher scaled difficulty parameters that maybe the player can pick. But I mean, on paper, the words themselves seem interesting. The next multi-year saga starts with Codename Apollo. I'm Allison. I am the D2 narrative director. I'm a fresh face at Bungie. I started doing the narrative direction for seasons in fall 2022. And my first D2 expansion was Final Shape. We're proud of the Final Shape and the ending we created for the Light and Darkness saga. And we knew that the episodes will follow would act as an epilogue, tying up light and dark hanging threads, but also setting us up for what's next. The episodes close doors and open new ones, purposeful ones, storylines that are set in place to prepare us for what comes next. And what is next for our saga? You'll see teasers of it in the later two episodes, and then fully kick off with Codename Apollo. The next saga is also based around a core theme, much like Light and Darkness did. It will introduce plenty of new characters, factions, twists, and more. There's a lot more here we'll say eventually, but we don't want to spoil the journey for you. This will be a multi-year journey, one we can't wait to take you on. Our first expansion, Codename Apollo, is a non-linear character-driven adventure. What do we mean by Codename Apollo is non-linear? Previously in stories like Final Shape, you experience the story as A to B to C to D in a nice straight line. In Codename Apollo, our story takes place over dozens of threads you'll explore and discover. So when you land on our brand new location, the story starts at A, and then you can choose if you want to explore C first, or try to get into B, or maybe investigate D. And the options you didn't choose, don't worry. Those other options are still open for you to go back and play through. You'll need to, because the more you play and discover, the more the story progresses. So experiencing a certain number of threads opens up the next part of the story. The order in which you explore will be something you choose, but we have built Codename Apollo in a way the story always makes sense and flows from beginning to middle to end. There is no time gating, no waiting for the next drop. Codename Apollo's story unfolds based on player progression. I'll drink to that. No more time gating? No more drip feed? I'll believe it when I see it, but this structure seems, this is a new structure. Destiny is at its best when it's mysterious, weird, and not afraid to try new things. This shift to non-linear stories isn't something we're locking ourselves into, obviously, but it is a structure that fits Codename Apollo best. The narrative structure of the releases that follow will be quite different, a structure that suits that game's experience. and we want to continue to innovate with each expansion across both gameplay and narrative. Into the unknown. This all sounds like a big change, and it is. Because when the rhythm of our story becomes predictable, or when characters and our world fail to change, that's how we create a situation, not a story. So, how can we innovate? By telling a story that keeps up with our innovation, not one that slows it down. That means an evolving world, giving space for new characters, growing and evolving factions. The fact that they're even mentioning factions anymore after they basically dropped that whole thing is interesting. Making sure the story we tell is in a world we have nurtured and with characters who grow in turn. We believe in rewarding the player for paying attention without punishing someone for not knowing something. That way, everyone gets to come along for the ride no matter how deep in the lore they are. You'll see that approach starting with episodes and continuing into the new multi-year journey. So when we think about a multi-year arc, what does that look like? Think of it as a constellation of stories united by a single theme. We will show you what that theme is later, but suffice to say, we believe in it. Think of this multi-year arc as a web, not a line. Each release fits into the larger saga. We can't wait to take you on that journey. Story is easy to spoil, so I won't ruin the details for what the theme of Codename Apollo is or what it is about, but I will give you something to look forward to. Apollo ends with a narrative gasoline that will propel us into the next few years with a clear theme, goal, and a destination that won't come at you as a straight line, but will be well worth the trip. It'll reward you, it'll surprise you, and it'll take us places Destiny has never seen before. See when the time is right. I don't know, man. On paper, it sounds good, but on paper, they have guaranteed the world to us. So on paper, it looks good, but you gotta wait and see. And that's the problem with all of these articles. And I always tell people, like, on paper, you know, going all the way back to Rise of Iron and Taken King. This is all after episodes. Yeah, after episode 3 is when Codename Apollo comes out. And that's when everything is... But I mean, they have some really solid... I will say they seem to have a very clear and concise direction of what they want to do with the game. And at this point, that's kind of all you can ask. And they seem pretty certain at this moment of reading this that they are confident in what they're doing with the game. You know. And with that, we come to a close. Well, a new beginning. Over the next few months, we'll be dishing out more deep dives and engaging in more conversation. We have no doubts the above breakdown of Codename Frontiers will spawn more questions than we can answer, but we'll be looking to keep you up to date as we take flight. Keep an eye on deep dive section on the deep dive section, as we'll be adding links to further topics. Thanks again for joining us on this first 10-year journey. We've been through so much, be it battling the darkness, stopping the witness. Now it's time to look to the stars again. It's time to imagine, to dream big, and explore what our futures can be within this universe. We have our heading and hope to see you join us along the way. For all mentions of free content, some content on PS4 or PS5 requires an active PlayStation subscription. You know, I'm willing to give the new head and the new narrative lead the benefit of the doubt. At least they seem to be wanting to shift the game in a whole new direction. And the only thing there's that one person chat's gonna hate me. The one thing I can remember that another game did something very similar, not the same. I'm not comparing, but I remember when I think Rebecca, I think is her name, when a group of people kind of came in to Warframe like back in 2017, and they basically were like, forget everything you know about this game. We're pushing this thing in a whole new direction, and you're going to hate it at first, but I guarantee if you trust us and if you rock with us, this new direction we're going to take it into will be much better for this game long term. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I do remember reading very similar things to the Warframe community way back in the day when Warframe was on its deathbed. I don't want to say that. Before it basically, started becoming what it is now. As far as I can tell, the only things that are paid, the only things that they seem, so the expansions, we know what the expansions are. These are 2 paid content. These are probably, we'll just play it safe and say these are 2, since they are not major content drops, these are probably $40 each, since they're going to be mid-size drops. And if they're mid-size, I'm going to assume that they're similar to Witch Queen, Shadowkeep. Well, Shadowkeep's kind of smaller, but I would consider smaller content drops, not like Final Shape, not like Forsaken, not like Taken King. I'm going to assume these are $40 each. $40 twice a year technically makes it less than the annual pass, less than what people are spending. And you would only be really paying for the new stories. But then again, that's part of the new stuff. So yeah, I guess you are technically paying for just raids and dungeons. Because the season, okay, so maybe not. So if we look at this one image and we just split it, seasons are available to all players. That would include this stuff. Expansions are the paid stuff, which would have to include the new stories, new missions, weapons, locations, gear, raids, and dungeons. Does that mean some of the stuff will slip into the free stuff? I don't know. 30th anniversary? If it's 30th anniversary, then what? That was $20? So $40 a year? Yeah, 30th anniversary, what, $20? $25? The 30th anniversary, you didn't get a raid. Just the structure. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, on the surface, on what they said, these are major. But until they tell you, like, this is what you have now, this is what it's going to be now, then there's no way of knowing. You don't think Bungie has enough staff to change much? I don't work there. I do not work there. Based off of this, though, you're getting less content out throughout the year. So who's to say that, like, it doesn't work out in their favor? Especially since they admit that the majority of their dev time has gone to the story and gone to the seasonal content that nobody really plays. And I gotta respect that because I'm very surprised that they admitted to that. Because a lot of their dev time went to just putting out this new seasonal stuff every 3 months. That pulls in people what from a month, yeah. And you know what? To respond to that, the reason we have drip feed content is because people ask for it. If you haven't been around since the beginning, you don't know this. When Taken King came out, there was too much content for 6 weeks. And people said, I would rather, some streamers, they don't want to admit it, but I remember some streamers even asked for drip feed content because they didn't like having everything front loaded onto you where you felt overwhelmed. And they didn't like, because back then you only had one expansion a year. You had one expansion every year. And you did back then they didn't have updates throughout the year for real. So they gave you the Taken King update in September. They gave you one small patch in November. And then nothing. And they didn't put out another update at all until late April. And by the time that happened, people were like, I would much rather have had a certain X amount of content drop for Taken King over the course of weeks and months. And then the same thing happened with Rise of Iron. Area was front loaded. Rise of Iron was front loaded. It was a bit of a smaller expansion, but it was front loaded for a month, just about. And the same thing, there was nothing until Moments of Triumph, or back then it was called Age of Triumphs, that dropped in May, I think. Mayish. So, yes. Drip Feed was a response to the community at that time. A lot of the folks that have voices in the community, including myself, didn't have voices back then for real. The audience is also different than back then as well. Yeah. The reason we have the current models that we do, or I guess did, is because the previous model people didn't like. So they seem to be going back to that almost, where they are just going to drop it, come back every 3 months. It's not a bad model, but it's not the model that stockholders like to see. You know, a lot of people looked at their final shape at their exit strategy. I mean, rightfully so. So the thing about Codename Frontiers now, whether you agree or not, and I do think a lot of people, I'm out. I'm clocking out. Cool. I did my 10 years. I'm out. And you have all the right to that. But as a business, as a company, Bungie has to figure out ways to either keep those people interested in a new life cycle or figure out a way to reset their audience. And I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just me just talking, I wouldn't be surprised if they use this moment in time to try something new. You know, this is the perfect time for them to try something new. While there isn't as many seasoned veteran players hooked to the game, you know. Don't leave if you don't know. This is what people wanted. They wanted Destiny 3. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, you can definitely let me know what you think, but at least we know something. I'm now more interested in seeing over the next 2 or 3 months whatever dev posts they put out when they start talking about the nitty gritty of the changes. That will truly decide on how much they really need to change or they think they need to change. Because going down to 2 updates every 6 months, going down to 2 expansions, 2 paid content drops, if you will. They still seem to be pushing the narrative of breaking down the barriers for players to get into the content. I gotta see it implemented. You know, there's not a single thing in this entire reading that like blew me away, and it's all words until it's implemented in game. There's some interesting things that they said, but they've said things like this before, you know.